And where did you live while you were in there?
in the Mitsubishi barracks.
And that was the Mitsubishi Auto Company barracks, correct?
Well, that's what I've heard. We just knew it was Mitsubishi. We didn't know what. He was a big contractor or a businessman in Japan. Mitsubishi was a big outfit. And these were many buildings. And they were like barracks. And that's where we lived in those for the 3 months. It wouldn't have been bad if there weren't so many rats in there, but
Did you have really any daily duties other than being an observer while you were there?
I don't think, well, it was guard duty.
Okay, you were assigned.
Just to make sure that nobody, well, people didn't get in fights and stuff like that too. It might be just your own nationalities, but or if somebody got sick or an appendectomy or something.
Because
So,
after 2 years, that you didn't have very positive feelings about the Japanese. And
yeah, it
as
was,
you and I visited some, you talked about the fact that the atomic bomb killed a lot of people. But had you had to go island to island to island and actually land in Japan, would have been significantly worse.
that Truman just saved more lives, and people don't realize what a massacre that would have been on both sides if he hadn't agreed to drop that second bomb and then they surrendered. Because the first one, they didn't surrender. The Hiroshima one. So it was within a week or so they dropped the second one. That was the one in Nagasaki, and that's the one that was even more powerful. And that's the one that the Japs surrendered, unconditionally surrendered.
Now, as we've been visiting about this, we were looking that the green pin there is where the Saipan was, where their home base. They took them over here to Okinawa. That's where they did their 3 weeks to a month of the backup for the invasion in Okinawa. They went back to Saipan, and then from Saipan they went to Nagasaki. And that's where they spent 3 months
Yep.
as observers. Now, you indicated that you met a couple, a Japanese couple,
Yes.
that you got to visit with and spend some time with. You kind of indicated that was therapy.
Well,
to yourself.
it was really good, because as much as I hated the SOBs, it wasn't the civilians and the poor kids and the women and all that. The women were treated so horrible anyway, but it was good for me to soften me a little bit, because these people, they were nice, you know, and they thought they were winning the war for one thing. They were so misled, and they were starving to death. The husband worked for the telephone company, and I only met him a few times, but we ended up bringing this shaving soap and jelly jam and that we used to have in the mess hall. This orange marmalade, I remember that. I hated it, but it was in these big cans, and there was always a lot of that left. And we'd get into town. We could only stay there for not till dark. You had to be back at camp by 6. So nobody could stay overnight, and they just thought that was so nice, and that we would bring that to them. And this one time, this one meal, her name was Takako Kirikawa. Can you imagine? I can remember her name. Takako Kirikawa. Her address was in Adamachi, number 40, Nagasaki, Kyushu, Japan. Now, I can't hardly remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
Can you remember your service number?
539799.
Not too many people. They
See, in the
never
Marine
forget.
Corps, we had a shorter number than the Army boys.
I just realized that.
Yeah, 539799.
Now, December 1945, you got to load up on ship.
Yeah,
Loaded it on a troop ship.
that was the Ponderay.
and you remember that name of that ship.
Yeah.
And you had a 1 week trip back to California, but you went through some typhoons.
Yes, that's what we called it, swing and sway on the Ponderay, because those typhoons were, the bow would come out of the water and boom, and they'd come down and they'd just creak. You figured it was going to split in half, especially when these were Liberty ships, you know, that, what was it, the guys that were building those, the ship makers.
Were there any workers?
No, there were two companies that, they're very popular ones. It doesn't matter, but they just threw them together, you know. They made them so fast and that, and we were afraid they weren't going to hold together.
Now, mealtime was not a good time then on a ship going through a typhoon, right?
Boy, I'll say not, because at least stay out of the galley, because there was more food on the floor than there was on the trays or the tables, because when it was the tray, it had these metal trays, you know, and they'd slide down, and when they hit the end, there's a little stopper there, and it hit that, and boom, they'd fly over and all over the floor, and God,
But
even the sailors that had done a lot of sea duty were getting a little seasick too, some of them. It wasn't just us.
But at that point, you were heading home, and you really didn't care how rough it got, right?
That's right. We just didn't want to get lost at sea now that we're getting so close, you know, to making it.
Now, what's surprised me is wearing summer gear.
Mm-hmm.
You landed at Camp Pendleton, California, the day before Christmas,
Yeah.
1945.
We had a big Christmas dinner.
That had to be one of your best Christmases for you to remember, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we could have all we wanted.
Did they try and hold you back a little bit just for fear that the stomach wouldn't be able to handle the ability to have all you wanted to eat?
I don't think so. No. The only thing is, when it was always that way, what you took, you ate, or you'd get reprimanded.
And they didn't serve warm beer with it either, did
No, sir. No warm beer.
And they kept you there a couple days and sent you by train to Great Lakes Training Center in Chicago?
Yeah, it was more than a couple of days, though. It was probably a couple of weeks, because we had to get clothing. We didn't have clothes to wear on Liberty and that. We just had the khakis that we were in, and once they got us fitted and they got transportation, then they sent us to the area closest to where we joined. Like Minneapolis, recruiting wasn't open anymore, so Great Lakes was the closest one.
So your
that's
formal discharge was on January 7th of 46.
January 7th, 46.
And you were able to travel by high-speed Zephyr train to
Yes, that
St.
was a
Paul?
nice ride in a club car.
Club car. And tell us a little bit about that. You're 2.5 years in a war zone, and you weren't old enough to buy beer.
Oh, when we were in Great Lake and got discharged, this friend of mine and I from Georgia, we were gonna have to stay there a couple of days, so we go to a nice restaurant. I order a bottle of or a glass of beer or whatever, and the waitress said, "Could I see your ID?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I'm sorry, I can't serve you. You're not 21. I said, "No, I'm not. I'm 20. She said, "I can't serve you." It kind of hurt.
After 2.5 years in a war theater.
It wasn't her fault, and I explained that to her. I said, but they're just looking out for my health. Little late.
But after you come back, you spent 4 years. Well, you spent 2.5 years in a military theater, and you never ever got 1 day of furlough. You never ever got home.
I was never home in uniform until I was discharged. I got this little picture here, and on the photo is, I don't know if you can see this, but I don't know how to hold this. there's a little mark right on that shoulder, and that's what we call the ruptured duck. That was your emblem that you were discharged. And my sister took this picture of me a day or so after I got home from Great Lakes.
You have one.
That's the only time I was home in uniform.
You have one other souvenir that you have. Or you got two souvenirs.
Oh.
You brought back with you a flag.
Yes.
Can you hold that up for us?
This is something that we started doing when we realized we might have a good chance of getting home alive. And we got flags off of all the Japs seem to carry these flags tucked in their underwear somewhere. And when we'd go through them, why we found one. So we would pass them around to the various fellas in the outfit and ask them to sign it, put their name on it and where they were from. And I don't dare wash it because it's indelible pen, and I'm afraid it'll be one big mess. But I've had that.
It's kind of a neat souvenir that you have.
It is, yeah.
And now you have one other thing that you want to tell us about.
Oh.
I'll take that and fold that for you. That is probably the most important out of all of it.
Well, as we talked earlier, I quit school in my 16th, when I was 16 years old, and went to work. But Harold Jenrich, who was a 3M, or a Fairmont fella here, and he's very knowledgeable about the VA and all that. And he said, Drob, see, you know, my name is Drobinski, but they nickname me Drob or Drobo, so that's what I've been going by. He said, Drob, he said, they got a system now, the VA will give you a certificate if you quit school and went in the service before you could have graduated. They will give you a diploma without that, what's those tests and all that,
GED test.
GAD, you don't have to go through that. You just show them your, you know, your age and your diploma, your discharge in that. And so it took me, I was 70 years old, but I got my diploma.
And you were a graduate of the class of 1942.
42. That's when I would have
And
graduated.
that's pretty important for you to share with your family.
Yes, and so I put it in a frame, and now I'm going to be 88 in a couple of weeks, and I was 70 when I got this, so I've had this in this frame since, 18 years now.
18 years.
And when my daughter visits, she said, Dad, you can put that away now. We all know that you got your diploma. I said, it took me 70 years to get it, and I said, it's staying here as long as I'm here. And she said, okay.
When you got out,
family joke.
when you got out, Al, you worked 4 years for Western Electric and Union Lighting, and then you joined 3M in April of 1950.
Yes.
And
Because-
the 3M ribbon product line brought you to Fairmont, correct?
Yeah, I worked in the St. Paul plant, and then they offered me a job here in quality control, a one-man department. I started out in
What year did you come to Fairmont?
1952.
1952 is when you came to Fairmont, so.
Yeah,
And you worked until your retirement on September 1st of 1982, correct?
81.
81, okay, I'm
Yeah.
off here. And, you know,
And
we
then
look,
I had this quality control job, and then they asked me to take over a production department, so I didn't want to because it was all female labor. You have 120 some ladies, and you can't please 3 at a time, much less.
120.
Now, that's just the male in me, but
Now,
but there were a lot of nice ones, believe me.
now, is there anything that we have missed as we've talked about your military career here?
No, I even gave you the story about the anthill, didn't I?
Yes. Well, you know,
When the kids always ask me, once in a while my grandsons would want to hear some stories. Well, they want to hear the gruesome one. I said, oh, I don't remember any of those. But then there was this story, I'll tell you, and I tell them the one about the ants.
so you have shared some of this with your children and your grandchildren.
My grandchildren especially. See, my grandchildren are 33 years old down to 29. That's the age of the four of them. They're all, young men.
Well,
No,
Al, we want to thank you for your service to the country.
Well, I was just one of the guys. I didn't do anything special or fantastic. I just did what I was told and the best I could.
And thank you for participating in the Martin County Historical Society's Veterans Video Project. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for even
Okay?
asking me to do it.